Welcome back to another episode of the Pharmacist Diaries podcast. This is episode 3 of our series talking about consultant pharmacists and the consultant pharmacist pathway. I am super excited because today we are talking all about work-life balance. And if you know me, you know that I love talking about this topic because the struggle is real for me as a parent, trying to build my career, trying to make sure that I am kind of on top of my game in my professional life, but also on top of my game as a parent, which is really a challenge. But we're talking to Jo Crook today, who is a consultant pharmacist in paediatrics, specifically in liver disease, as well as liver transplant, and she works at King's College Hospital NHS Trust. I'm really excited to showcase her journey as a pharmacist. She's really amazing, super inspiring, has had multiple years in the pharmacy field, and I cannot wait to showcase her journey with you. She's recently completed her NIHR pre-doctoral fellowship and is potentially considering pursuing a PhD. She's also a mum of 2 children, and I'm also excited to showcase that side of her life as well. So let's dive into this week's episode. If you find yourself constantly feeling run down and lacking energy, I may have a solution for you. Consider boosting your immune system and overall health with Immune Hero by The Naked Pharmacy. This supplement offers a 100% naturally sourced vitamin C from amla fruit and zinc from holy basil, oyster, and shiitake mushrooms, along with organic moringa for your gut health. This combination does 3 things. 1, it enhances your immunity by stimulating the production and function of white blood cells, which are crucial for fighting off infections. Number 2, it improves the production of collagen, which will help to maintain the health of your skin, hair, and nails, and reduce the signs of aging. And number 3, it will also provide antioxidant support, promoting wound healing and enhancing your body's ability to absorb iron. Use code PD20 for 20% off and start your day feeling refreshed with Immune Hero. Hello, Jo.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Before we kind of dive into work-life balance, managing stress, tips on kind of self-care as a pharmacist, and not just a pharmacist, a consultant pharmacist, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey into pharmacy?
My journey's been quite a long one. I think part of that is because I am a working mum. I've worked part-time for well over 12 years now. So I think if I hadn't have worked part-time, I might have got here a bit sooner, but actually taking my time on the journey has probably had a lot of benefits as well. So I started off at Guy's and St Thomas's as a resident pharmacist many moons ago. I was keen as a bean, Bradford student. Bradford students had never been to King's before, so not King's, GSTT. But we were lucky because we were the first year of students to go from 4 years to the 4-year degree. So when we went out as Bradford students in our 3rd year, we were the only trainee pharmacists, plus the Scottish pre-regs, to go out that year. So we took that as an opportunity to say, right, I'm having the best spots. I'm going to GSTT. So luckily for us, because I was on the BPSA committee, I knew the lady who ran the pre-reg training programme. So I rang her up and said, I want to come to London. And she was like, yeah, totally. And luckily for us, Bradford supported that decision. They came and interviewed a raft of people and I got a place there. And that was really what started to open my eyes to what hospital pharmacy was. I met all these amazing, inspiring pharmacists like Steve Tomlin, Kathy McKenzie, Andy Kay, Duncan McRobbie, a whole raft of people who were so passionate about clinical pharmacy that I was like, that's who I want to be. That's where I'm going. And that's what really kicked off my journey. So from doing the rounds at GSTT, doing the diploma, I decided I wanted to go travelling. But I was told by Duncan McRobbie that I couldn't go travelling unless I worked whilst I was out there. So I rang up the chief pharmacist in New Zealand and said, I'm coming to New Zealand. Would you happen to need a paediatric pharmacist by any chance? And they said yes. So off I went to New Zealand, worked for 6 months. really enjoyed seeing another side to pharmacy on the opposite side of the world. And then came back to London, where I was only going to stay for a year. But then 20 years later, I'm still here. Came back, finished my training, finished my 8A, and then went off to Great Ormond Street. At Great Ormond Street, I was an educational pharmacist because I've always been passionate about mentorship, about teaching people, about helping people, and passing on all the great things that I'd learnt, as well as a formulary pharmacist. So it's a really good balance of the geeky science side of me that really likes the detail, and pushing the frontiers of science, plus doing all the mentorship and education. So I was there for about a year. And then I decided that wasn't really for me. It was a bit too far from home. I wanted to settle down, have a family. So I moved back south, further down the river to Chelsea and Westminster, where I stayed for 10 years. And that was where, again, I met some really, really inspiring people like Barry Jabraj, who really showed me how being empathetic and having a really great nature about working with not only pharmacists, but with patients, that you can really make an impact. In my time at Chelsea, I did an MSc whilst I was pregnant. I decided to go on and do my prescribing course at that time in inflammatory bowel disease, and just kind of coasted a little bit because I was having kids, and it was quite comforting to me to go to work, know what I was doing, get on with it, come home, sort the kids. So I did that for quite a long time. But in between all of the different mat leaves coming in, coming out, I did something new. So the benefit of working 3 days a week at Chelsea was when I came back from maternity leave, I said, actually, I want to do an extra day. What have you got for me? And I managed to fall into a research project called REMAC, which was completely out of my scope. It was in elderly people and it was about falls. And I would have been about paediatrics for the last 15 to 20 years. So I wasn't completely sure whether I had the skills to do it. But actually, once I learnt how to work within the research realm, and it was very much about service evaluation and improvement and preventing falls. Actually, old people aren't that different to young people. It's the opposite spectrum, but the problems can be quite similar. So actually, I could apply a lot of my communication skills, my drive to deliver projects, and just having that experience of working outside the normal clinical picture. So working with psychologists, doctors, researchers, project managers, really opened my eyes to a different area of pharmacy that I thought, actually, this is something I really enjoy. So that's when I started to think, well, if I really enjoyed that, where can I take me next? And again, I was really fortunate to be supported by a great team at Chelsea who, every time I turned around and said, well, actually, I want to do this, they were like, yep, go and do it. And I've been really fortunate to be supported the whole way through my journey. I've had my fair share of knockbacks as well, don't get me wrong. But overall, my pharmacy family, as I call them, have been really supportive of my whole journey. And I think that is what part of why I've got to where I've got now.
That's so interesting because it is quite a winding journey. And
very winding.
A lot of that journey, like you said, has been part-time, but you have achieved like an insane amount. I mean, when you built your consultant pharmacist portfolio, were you surprised by how much was in it and how much you've achieved? Or did you sit back and reflect and be like, yeah, this is me?
I think part of it is being part of South East London. We're quite lucky in that the training programme is set up and it's quite broad. So you do end up with little snippets of a bit of audit here, a bit of research here. You always come across interesting cases, etc. But a lot of it is just me going, oh, what are you doing? Can I be part of that? For example, when I was on the intensive care unit as a band 6 pharmacist, we came across a really interesting case, never seen it before. And when I spoke to the team, they were like, no, we've never seen it before either. We're writing up the case. Can you help us? And I was like, yeah, do you know what? I will help you. And I got my name on a paper. So from the very start, I was very inquisitive as to, well, what are you doing and what can I do? And then thinking, well, that looks good. I'll add that to my CV. And again, it's having those networks. So within the neonatal paediatric pharmacist group, they've always been very supportive of young pharmacists doing projects and bringing your work, no matter what level, whether you're a beginner, whether you've been in it for 20 years, bringing your project and presenting it at a national level and having that opportunity to present to your peers. And I've done that over the years, and gradually over time, I've kind of built up a slow and steady amount of work. The thing I wish I knew then that I know now is that I would have been a bit more strategic about what I had put in my portfolio, because I was very much take the opportunity when it came to me. But actually, if I'd had a theme or a strategy of the area that I was interested in from the beginning, I would have had a much more cohesive level or body of work now than I do. So I think that would be one piece of advice I give to people is, yes, take the opportunity to do pieces of work, but also have a bit of a strategy about what are you interested in, what are you achieving by doing that piece of work, and what does it add to your portfolio of practice in order to build a really good picture of who you are and where you're going.
Yeah, because when you look at the consultant pathway, it's not just about the clinical expertise. There's so much else that is involved with developing that portfolio. We've discussed this in the last 2 episodes when we've talked about the leadership journey, the research, the education and training. And it's really nice to see that you've obviously worked in multiple different hospitals, because I think, and I say this all the time on the podcast, that it brings variety into who you are, and you learn different things from different places and different experiences, whether it's a small hospital, a big one, a teaching trust, versus a very specialist hospital like the Evelina, where it's tertiary care, or Great Ormond Street. So you can kind of gather little bits of information from each place that you've worked and then implement those strategies or that project management or an audit that you did in one trust. Oh, let me try that somewhere else that I'm working. And one of the nicest things is hearing that you actually did leave paediatrics to go into commissioning, to go into sort of medicines information, which has helped you to build other skills that you need to like bring back to the consultant pharmacist role. And you can put that into your portfolio. And pharmacy is a really small place, right? You've mentioned Duncan McRobbie, Barry Jabraj, you've talked about Steve Tomlin and, you know, other experts that you've been inspired by, people that are role models, some of which you've been on the podcast as well. And utilizing that network and learning from people who've already got that experience and asking them, like you said, curiosity. Like, be inquisitive, ask people, how did you get to where you are? Find out their journey. Of course, this podcast provides a lot of that information now, which is so cool. But if you're face to face with someone who you find a role model, like lean in on that, learn from them and gain what you need to know or the information that you're lacking to then support you on that journey. And though your journey sounds like it was quite smooth in some ways and it was quite structured, you kind of knew what you were doing, and from the minute you kind of talked to me about going to GSTT, you used your network and your BPSA experience to help you get that job. And that's really valuable for people to know that actually your network means so much in pharmacy. And it also showed your determination as a pharmacist in the very early stages of your career that, hey, I want this job and I need to find things outside of the box and not just apply and compete with the 200 plus people who've also put in their application and get myself a place somewhere that I know I will thrive. So I love that, hearing that side of your story, and it's clearly continued throughout your journey. I wanted to ask, what are the challenges that you've faced in terms of work-life balance? Because it is really hard to get to this level of mastery alongside parenting, we've had the pandemic, and you've probably had personal experiences that you've also been through that have been hard. So tell me a little bit about that.
I think some of the difficulties are generally learning to say no. So you get lots of opportunities within your career and as you go to do different projects, to work with different people. And I think one of the difficulties is saying no to some things and having a bit of a strategy in your mind about what are the things that you have to do in terms of to make sure the patients are safe, make sure what you're doing is safe, and what are the things that you can do to not only benefit your practice, but also for the patients and your service as well. So it's a kind of a trade-off between what is it you're trying to achieve and what is it that and where is it you're going. And I think sometimes you have to play the long game. I had a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, when I was coming back from maternity leave the first time round, and I saw a lot of my colleagues going straight ahead of me, getting these senior jobs that I knew that I could get, but I just knew that I wasn't in that place at that time to manage a really highly powerful, stressful job, plus a kid at home, wasn't sleeping for the first 2 years, more than 1 to 2 hours a night. I knew I couldn't face a job like that in my current situation. So I had to sit there and watch. I was obviously very happy for other people to progress, but I did have a lot of FOMO for quite a long time. And eventually, when I got to a place where I was like, I'm at a really good place now. I've got a really good portfolio. I've gotten everything I can out of this role. The kids are a lot more settled. I'm in a place where I can wait for something to come along that I know is right for me, not just any job. It has to be the right job. And luckily for me, the team leader role at King's came up. I went for it. And then within a short time afterwards, they offered me the consultant role, which I wasn't expecting. But as soon as I was offered it, I went for it, all guns blazing. That's my job. I'm having it. I threw everything at it and just went for it. So I think there are a lot of difficulties along the way, but you have to think about what's right for you right now. And sometimes just because a job comes up doesn't mean you have to go for it. It has to be the right time for you in your personal life, in your career life. Because if you jump too soon, you can end up really struggling in a role. And if you don't have that support system around you, it can really be overwhelming for people. And I've seen it happen quite a few times where people jump into roles too soon and they end up struggling for quite a while, and it takes them a while to get into a role. And I think initially when I went into my consultant pharmacist role, because I felt the pressure of, oh my God, I've made it. I'm a consultant pharmacist. I've got to prove myself. That really made me be a bit like, a cat in the headlights for about 6 months. I was like, oh, I'm here now. What do I do? And it took me a while to get over that initial, I've got to prove myself. It's like, no, you've already proven yourself. You've got the job. You've shown you can do it. Now just get on with it. And it did take me a good while to get over that initial kind of, what would you call it? Where you don't feel like you're worthy of being in the role. But then when you sit down and you do your portfolio and you say, well, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this and I've done this and I can do that. Actually, you have to go back and remind yourself sometimes that you can do this. It might not be entirely the perfect the first time around, but the thing about the consultant role is that you go in usually at an entry level. So there's still a huge way to go. You've got the whole 5 domains to come across. You can't be master of all of them all at the same time. So you've still got a really big journey to go on. And I think that's what people maybe misunderstand, that once you're there, you've still got a journey to go on. You've still got lots of learning to do. You've still got loads of development to do. And that you will still, 5 years down the line within my post, I'm a completely different person than I was 5 years ago. And I've learned so much in the last 5 years and developed my portfolio that it's unbelievable. And I think I'm in a completely different mind space now as well. I feel a lot more confident. I feel I've got a really good evidence of what work I've achieved, but there's still so much more to go.
Pharmacy is always a continuing educational pathway. And actually, in episode 2 with Sital, we talked about exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's a long game.
It is a long game.
Becoming a consultant pharmacist is definitely achievable for lots and lots of people, but you have to just be aware that it's a long game that will take you quite a while to reach it. And you will have ups and downs within that journey. You will have setbacks that make you feel like you're so far from achieving that post. And then you'll suddenly have 6 achievements in a row that help you gain that evidence in all those different aspects. And life does get in the way at times. Kids get in the way. There are so many ups and downs with the different stages of the ages of your children. When you talk about FOMO, it makes so much sense to me right now because I'm exactly where you must have been several years ago. I'm in a place where I want to push my career forward and I've become a specialist pharmacist in peds, in palliative care, but I've had to completely step away from my current role in order to prioritize my family life, which is just as important as my work life. In fact, probably more important than my work life. But as pharmacists and ones who are very career oriented and career focused, there is a lot of drive and there is a lot of sometimes comparison with other people, but also it helps you to then move forward in your journey, in your professional life. And some of those challenges can be very difficult to overcome emotionally. But it's really nice to have friends and that network of people who are also on the similar pathway. Because when you're in a place where you feel a bit run down or a bit burnt out or a bit stressed, or you think that you're not moving forward, it's that network and that friendship piece where those people will help you to rise back up. And that's really important on this journey, I think, as well. I mean, what strategies did you use to manage your stress and kind of preventing yourself from burning out? Because you've done so much in your journey, Jo.
Yeah, I think I have had periods of burnout where I've hit, recently at Christmas, I just finished my NIHR predoctoral fellowship. I was also working, I was also managing the kids. And at Christmas, I kind of hit the wall and I was like, right, if I don't stop now, if I don't slow down, I know that nothing good will come out of the other side of this. My kids will suffer from it, my work will suffer from it, and I will suffer from it. So I had to really give myself a bit of a talking to at Christmas and say, look, you've done an absolute shed load this year. You've only got 1 month to go until you finish. Take a breath, slow down, and just really reevaluate what you can achieve in this last month. And I think that's what you need to do. You need to know where your tipping point is and what you can achieve, because there are times at work where it's full on, like COVID, strikes, shortages. What else have we been hit with this year? So many things. Every week you come in and there's something new to deal with, some pressure or change. So you do always have this on, but you have to know at what point do you step away and take a bit of a break, because if you don't, then you can't hit those problems as hard as you would if you were rested. So I found last year I was working full time, and by the end of the year, I knew for me that I couldn't continue to work full time and be the parent I wanted to be, the consultant pharmacist I wanted to be, and to have a bit of time for me in between all of that. I still want to be able to go and do Pilates, which I love, go for a coffee with my friends, go for walks. And I think the key is to just schedule in a really short amount of time in your diary. So every week I'll plan out the week, who's where, when are you doing it, and what are you doing, and what are you eating. So I will plan everything out for the week. We might not hit it all during the week, but I'll plan out what we're doing. And then I'll plan in at this time, I'm going to go for a walk and Ed's sorting the kids, who's my husband. And I'm going to have that half an hour to an hour to myself to go and walk and just really have that downtime to let my mind just go through all the chatter that it needs to go through. And then by the end of that, I can come back home and say, right, kids, story time. And then we'll have a nice, relaxed bedtime instead of me coming home from work feeling really and then taking it out on the kids and getting really angsty because they won't go to bed, or the usual drama that happens at bedtime. And having that time to just really, if I need to take a minute, just to take a minute. So having that tag team, I'm really lucky that I do have that tag team with Ed, so that if I've reached my point where I'm like, I just can't do this today, can I just take an hour? And he will just take over from me, and we do the same for each other. So I think that's having that support is really key. At work, again, I'll try and plan. I probably can't do it every week, but at least every 2 to 3 weeks, I'll plan a coffee with a buddy who I can go and just have a rant, have a moan, oh my goodness, I've got loads to do, blah, 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 and then get it off my chest and then go back and face what I've got to face. Because I think also when you get to that senior level, you don't have your group of resi buddies to have that. You know, you need to offload all the things that you've been dealing with all that time. So you need to have at least one rant buddy at work or even outside of work that you can just go and have a proper moan or rant or get whatever it is off your chest about what's happening with the kids, etc. And then usually that person will pick you up and go, but you can do it, it's fine. No, you know, have that person who can really pick you up. And I think pharmacy is really good like that. There's loads of supportive people out there who will pick you up if you need it, because I think we're all perfectionists. We're all very driven. We all want to achieve. So you just need to find those key people. And if I think the difficulty about moving trusts is sometimes you lose those rant buddies. So it's trying to find your kin within your trust. And it might not be someone in pharmacy. It might be someone external. It might be a nurse. It might be another doctor. But it's finding those allies, that will really support you through a difficult time, that you can turn around and say, I'm having this really difficult question or thing that's happening. Can you help me? Can I just chat it through with you? What do you think I should do? Because day to day to day, you have to make decision after decision after decision after decision. What do you think about this, Joe? What do you want to do about this, Joe? And it's really tiring. And it's really important to have that person to say, do you think I did the right thing? Or just to offload and get it off your chest. The main things for me are walking, Pilates, coffee, and in the summer, rosé in a pub garden if I can get it. But it doesn't happen very often these days.
I mean, those are amazing strategies. And I think the key to kind of the strategy is organizing your time.
Yeah.
It's being the person who sits down and looks at their schedule for the week and finds the pockets of time that allow you to either completely step away from life, work, kids, stress, and do what lights you up, whether that's sitting in a room on your own, painting or listening to music, whether you go for walks like you do or go and have a coffee with a friend. It's your time each week to kind of turn off and allow yourself self-care effectively. For me, Sanjay and I try to meet up every single week and organize our schedules together because obviously as parents, you've got multiple pickups, drop-offs, clubs, play dates, things like that you have to be on top of, and somebody's got to do it. And we like to try and make sure it's 50-50. And recently with my new transition into sort of locum life, I've stepped into community pharmacy after many, many years. But one of the joys of doing it, which is different to a kind of a leadership role in the NHS and in a very specialist area, I don't have emails, which is amazing, by the way. I kind of do my job and go home. And as a parent and in the place that I'm at right now, that's nice. I never knew how nice it was because I've kind of forced myself to step away. I cycle to the pharmacy. So it's like 7 miles there, 7 miles back. And then on the way back, and I'm not a very confident cyclist, and I'm definitely not confident on the road, but it's my form of exercise at the moment. But it's also my time to de-stress before I walk into the house and then do bedtime routine. So those things are really, really important to me. Daily sleep, like getting as much sleep as I can. I've had, like you, 2 years of very limited sleep. My son is just awful when it comes to kind of bedtime routine. And when finally now he's nearly 2, we're at the point where he's sleeping through the night, probably 4 or 5 times a week. But you know how it goes. It's never, a forever thing. You have ups and downs, don't you? But I feel so much better in myself. I did get to the point where I was so exhausted that I struggled to see the light. I struggled to find that motivation to move forward. I struggled coming into work every day with an hour and a half, 2-hour commute, and then going home and trying to be a good version of me as a parent, which was a struggle. So having those strategies that work for you individually are really, really important to be successful into a consultant pharmacist pathway, because you will have ups and downs. Things will get in your way, but what you have to do is shift that mindset. You have to see it as a journey. It's not about the end outcome, actually. It's about the progress that you make on a day-to-day basis. And when you describe your work and you say, like, it's problem after problem after problem, when you're in that day-to-day, like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. or 9 to 5, in a hospital role, we're always solving problems. Things always arise, whether it's staff shortages or sickness or a resource issue or a new supply issue with a medication that you want for one of your patients who's a kid. Like, these problems always come up, and you get so involved with that day-to-day work that you sometimes can forget the pathway that you're on. So again, manage your time so that you have pockets of time where you're like, this is my time to work on my portfolio. This is my 2 hours for the week that I'm going to give myself dedicated, quiet, perfect time for me to step away from my work life, step away from my children or my family or my partner, and just focus on me and your career pathway. And I think that strategy in itself is really valuable, because otherwise you can do the day-to-day. You can feel like you're progressing forward in your job, but when you look at that pathway and making sure that you follow it and you actually make that progress week by week, you got to organize it. You got to find that time to make it happen.
Yeah, you definitely do. And again, I'm very lucky to have Ed, who was willing to go part-time for me to then work full-time, because I recognised at the beginning of my switch from part-time to full-time that I would find it a challenge to do the whole thing. So I said to him, would he be willing to go part-time? And he would. And actually we had some quite interesting reactions to when I told people that my husband was working part-time to support me to work full-time. And I think there needs to be more emphasis on the shared parenting across men and women, or whoever's the two carers. You need to make sure that the mental load just doesn't fall on one person, because the mental load is so high. Like, I know you got up at 4:30 this morning to come and do this podcast, and the mental load of doing anything like this is huge. So you really do need to try and have, if you can, someone to share it with. I think you're right about the long game, but I think people also need to remember that it's okay to have a year where you're not this all singing or dancing fancy pants pharmacist who rules the world. You can have a year where you just coast and get on with what you need to do, and that's fine. Take as long as you want. We're all going to be working till we're at least 77 or 8. So you've got time to play the long game. And if you need to take time out, you don't know where that time out will take you. So my time out led me down the research route. And if you'd have told me as a trainee pharmacist that I'd be thinking about doing a PhD when I'm in my 40s, I'd be like, don't be bonkers. There's no way I'd ever do that. I'm not interested in research. I've got no interest in doing a PhD. Don't be nutters. And then yet 20 years later, that's where I've ended up, because I've taken different things as I've gone and I've thought, actually, yeah, I do want to do that. And I think taking time out in community will really give you a really nice aspect of a different side of pharmacy, and it will give you different skill sets. So you'll find by the end of the year that actually you can take that and it will take you somewhere else. So it's not always a bad thing to step away from what you know and go and try something new. It can actually be quite refreshing. And like you said, sometimes you just need that time out to focus on what's important right now. And then you can always come back to, if you want to, the same path or a slightly different path. Because even when you get to consultant pharmacist, it's like, well, what's next? Because I might be a consultant pharmacist for the next 20, 30 years before I retire, or there might be other opportunities for me to go and do something else. So I've got a completely open mind to where I might go next.
Yeah. And you never really know what opportunities are going to be thrown your way. I mean, so many women that I've spoken to have said that they've had light bulb moments during maternity leave. I mean, this podcast was completely unexpected. I became a lecturer at KCL and was teaching students and identified that they don't really know that much about pharmacy careers. And I wanted to find a way and a format that they could learn, feel inspired, feel motivated, and something that's educational, that's not what they would traditionally see as an undergraduate pharmacy student. It was audio at that time, but then during my mat leave, I kind of had that space to think about transitioning to video. And of course, I've got a partner who's a videographer who makes everything possible for me. But it was having that headspace, and I'm in that place now. I had the perfect job. Evelina was the perfect job for me. It was the perfect specialty. I was loving palliative care. I was loving the education and training side of being at KCL on MPharm and on IP. I thrived in so many different ways with this specific role, but the commute and being on a train for 3 to 4 hours a day with 2 children at home became really challenging for me, but also really challenging for Sanjay, who has to step up in terms of parenting when he's in a place where he also wants to thrive in his career and has taken quite a lot of time out of his career journey in the early stages of Lily being born to allow me to kind of come back to the UK from the UAE and thrive as a pharmacist. And it does. You've got to kind of give and take, don't you? You've got to be able to kind of negotiate with your partner and allow everyone to kind of have the space to have that opportunity. I am finding it hard. I've got that FOMO. I'm seeing everyone else doing really exciting things in the hospital space. I'm missing a permanent job, but I'm also enjoying exploring. I'm also enjoying the free time that I have with my children. I'm exploring community pharmacy because, hey, it's actually easy for me. It's local. I'm still making an impact. I'm still being a pharmacist. I love the customers, so it's all good. I'm a checking machine. I'm checking dossets after multiple years. It's super hard, but it's giving me the headspace to actually reflect and say, what do you want to do next? Because I can't do this commute to London. It's out of the question. So if I want to continue with paediatrics and I want to continue in education, because those are my 2 passions alongside podcasting, where can I do that I can thrive? Is that going to be a role in a GP practice where I can do paediatrics as a specialist? Is that, a local hospital that I might find a paediatric role, which kind of combines with a bit of education and training? I watch the space and find out, really. But I'm really pleased to hear how much you've done. It's incredible, it's inspiring, and it's motivating me to think that actually there is light at the end of the tunnel as a mum, that you can take this time out and then find the headspace to actually get back into a really fulfilling career. And I love that you've done a lot of that journey part-time, because I've never seen myself working part-time. I've never done it before. So it's nice to know how far you can come, because sometimes you think that actually part-time is just... for me, I always feel like you're not as good of a pharmacist when you step back and you do things part-time, because things are slow and I want to pick up the pace and do things as fast as I can, because that's just who I am. I'm really driven in that way. So it's nice to see how far you've come.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of a negative connotation to people who only work 3 days a week, but actually the reality is I work constantly. If I'm not at work, I'm at home and I'm working, and family life work. But part-time really gives me the flexibility. So I can choose on a Monday to write that abstract that I've been meaning to write for the conference that I've been meaning to go to. I can choose to sit down and add to my portfolio, or I can choose to go and sort out whatever I need to sort out that day for the just daily life admin. I think that part-time is much better for me because it gives me the flexibility to not only deliver what I've said I'll deliver in the 3 days, but to do all the extras bits as well. But the extra bits are the bits that I want to do, not the ones that have been given to me, if that makes sense. So it actually adds quite a lot of value to the role that I do. So I probably do more than the 3 days that I'm meant to, but I quite like that because it gives me the freedom and the flexibility to have a bit of thinking time, which I need. I've discovered that I actually need that time. I can't just work. I need a bit of time to think, to process it, and then to do it. And as a working mum, I fly through stuff because I have to get in, get on, get it done, move. So you're on. If I had 5 days to do it, I'd do it in 5 days. If you give me 3 days to do it, I'll do it in 3 days. And I think you really learn to adapt. But also, I have to be quite clear about what I will deliver in those 3 days and not just be superwoman and be working 24 hours a day. So I need to make sure that my 3 days are my 3 days, and that anything I do on top of that is either for the benefit of me or something that I'm really passionate about. So I try to keep work within work, but it's amazing what you can do in 3 days. I know quite a few part-time consultant pharmacists, and I think it's really positive that the pharmacy teams across London are supporting people to work part-time in such senior roles, because I think they recognise the amount you can deliver at that level across those days. And as long as you've got clear objectives about what you are going to deliver and across what domains, for example, at King's, we have a job plan. So every year I'll sit down with my manager and I'll say, this is what I'm going to deliver this year. This is what domains it hits on the consultant framework. And then, of course, there's a bit of flex within that. So if everything goes a bit Pete Tong that week and we've got no staff and everyone's off and there's strikes, then of course I'll be on the floor doing patient care. But then I'll be quite clear to take that time back if I can to crack on with the other stuff that I need to do and need to almost step away from King's to do all my external, regional, national stuff to make sure that I am delivering at that level, at consultant pharmacy level, to make sure I'm delivering the value for my post. So it's kind of having, again, that long game approach to what am I doing in those 3 days, what's achievable. And for anyone who is like you or me, who is very driven, I don't think there's any problems doing anything in 3 days. And most people probably get more for their money than what they're paying for.
I mean, I haven't thought about it that way, and you've really shifted my mindset, because when you work 3 days and you go all in on those 3 days and you deal with all the things that come your way when it comes to, you know, like everything going Pete Tong, and you have to then be a clinical pharmacist, be on the wards and help to cover, you know, direct patient care when you could be doing other things with leadership or your consultant role. But on your days off, obviously they're not days off. You are being a parent. You are getting on with the general day-to-day of home life. But the free time that you do have is spent doing things that you're genuinely passionate about, things that you want to accomplish, which you don't necessarily have the time to do at work, but you're happy to spend that time pursuing your goals and your dreams and your passions because you're that interested in it. So I haven't thought about it from that perspective. So it makes a lot of sense. And it actually, you're utilizing your spare time to really rise you above and beyond what you're doing in your day-to-day job, because you've got that kind of reflective space to be able to do it. You're not under a pressured environment to try and cover a ward of 25 patients alongside trying to write that abstract, or rushing a ward of 25 patients to get back to the computer to write that abstract, and you sit down and a problem you're faced with stops you from being able to do it. I mean, that happens all the time, right? When you're in a hospital job, there's always people asking questions. The phone is ringing, the bleep's going off, the emails are coming through. So you are bombarded. So you don't always have that headspace. So those days that you have off, you're utilizing to push yourself forward, which I like. And as a mum, if our kids are at school, we do have some time during the day. It's just utilizing those pockets of time in the right way. And again, building in structures and time management to say, well, Monday, I'm going to work on my abstract. Like, that's my task for the morning once the drop-off's done. Even if you spent an hour doing it, you're still moving forward.
And I think you really have to have that mindset that the team won't die without you. So you can delegate. So I've struggled with that for a very long time, delegating work to other people because they just won't do it the same way that I'll do it, for example. But I think as a consultant pharmacist, you have to be really careful not just to keep everything for yourself, not just to be the person who does everything and doesn't let anyone else do anything, because who's coming up behind you? Who's going to take your job when you decide to move on? So by making sure that you give opportunities to the people that are coming up the ladder behind you and trusting them to get on and do while you're not there, and making sure they know that I'm there for them if anything was bad to happen, whether I'm working or not. They can call me up if it's a real disaster and say, Jo, I really need your help. Can you help me? And I know that they won't abuse that because they know my home life is important to me, that I don't, I'm at home, I'm doing other things. But if they really need me, they can call me. But also on a working day, that I will step away and go and work away from the team so that they know that I'm confident that they can deliver what they're going to deliver, but I'm also there for them if they need me. So if they need any kind of support, advice, they can call me up. So it's about having that balance of supervision, making sure that your team know that you're available, but also giving them the space, giving yourself the space to deliver what's in your job plan, but also plan the other things that you might do as well. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
We've talked so much about work-life balance, kind of your career journey, which is so inspiring. And thank you so much for spending time with me to showcase your story and to talk about strategies that will help you to kind of manage the stress, like manage your time, prevent that burnout piece, which is easily doable as a pharmacist, but also when you start really pushing yourself and pushing those boundaries, it can be challenging because you can snowball into just being in work mode all day, every day. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode and episode 3 of our series. We heard from Sukeshi in episode 1. If you haven't checked that out, we talk about the consultant pharmacist role and the pathway and the framework. So go and check that out if you haven't seen it. We also spoke to Sital, who is a consultant pharmacist in King's as a liver specialist. And she talked all about the different kinds of specialist areas that we have as consultant pharmacists and also the emerging pathways. I hope you enjoyed today's episode where we talk about work-life balance and strategies to manage stress. And the next episode, you'll be hearing about how you can work as a consultant pharmacist across different sectors. So primary, intermediate and secondary care. So look forward to that episode in the next few days. Hey there. Are you tired of staring at multiple products in the supplement section of supermarket aisles or health food shops and not knowing what to pick? Maybe you've looked at the back of the packaging to read the ingredients and you feel confused when you see a long ingredient list of chemicals and additives. I've been there so many times and it can be frustrating. Thankfully, I have found the perfect solution and I've got to share it with you. Switch to the Naked Pharmacy for a natural alternative. Their natural supplements come from real foods like plants, fruits and vegetables. They're dried and concentrated to keep the good stuff like vitamins, minerals and antioxidants. These natural ingredients work better with your body, enhancing absorption and reducing side effects. Synthetic supplements, on the other hand, are made in labs with chemicals and can contain impurities. They don't absorb as well and might not give you the health benefits you need. Why settle for synthetic when you can go natural? Try the Naked Pharmacy and get 20% off your purchase with code PD20. Embrace the power of nature today.